I'm a father of my daughter who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 7, and I come from Peel regions and also the South Asian community, Punjabi speaking community, and I got introduced to autism when my daughter was very young, and we eventually learned about autism at the age of 7 when she was 7 and diagnosed. At my daughter's first birthday, so we celebrated at our house. We invited a lot of friends and relatives, and I believe that was the first big crowd she saw. And her reaction to the crowd and refusing to cut the cake, and it was very different. It was something we could not identify what exactly is going on. She was very shy, trying to hide herself, not able to interact with anyone, even with the parents. So we first thought that this is maybe normal, it's first time she's seeing the crowd and she's responding that way. But eventually we started to notice that that behavior continued. It did not stop over the months and weeks and years. And eventually when she went to the daycare, my daughter was in the daycare for about 1 month, I would say. And the daycare identified that there is something different. She's not playing with the children as usual. Her behaviors are different. She's hard to manage. And they recommended that we should go see a doctor. And that's how our journey for all the medical process started. Well, we went to our family doctor to start with, and we went there and we expressed our concerns and what the daycare have mentioned to us, and some feedback that we were getting from the school also, and our own observations of her. So we expressed that, and that's where eventually the family doctor referred us to a specialist, a pediatrician. To see that we were getting the feedback from the daycare and from school that there may be some concern or some medical issue with my daughter, that was something we were not ready, myself and my wife, to hear that there may be something, as to say, wrong, and especially with your child, and no parent want to hear that. And we were not ready to hear it, but we were educated enough that we knew we need to do something about it now at an early age, or rather than wait, because what happens and myself coming from the South Asian community, there is a big denial to these issues and concerns, especially with the disability. And we were not sure if it's a disability. We originally thought maybe it will be just some behavior issue, she's not interested in school, stuff like that. And we were nervous. We were a little bit scared that we are going to go to the doctor, and what if doctor actually does diagnose something? Then what? And there's a bigger layer on that. My child being female South Asian, it adds another layer of complication, where if it was a male, it would have seen differently. And we were very nervous going into that appointment. Well, culturally in South Asian, if a guy is have a disability, they would still get better chances, better opportunities, and that will still be from a male perspective acceptable. But when you have a female, they have always been considered at where the female have to one day get married and go to another house, and they have to do these certain tasks and certain responsibilities, and you won't be able to leave her alone. So all those thoughts were running through our mind that time. The first original appointment, when we went to the family doctor, we were referred to a pediatrician, and we were told we will get a call. And we went through about 5 different specialists before we went to eventually a doctor who gave the diagnosis. So the whole process was years. I think we identified there is some issue about when she was 1.5, 1, but she wasn't diagnosed until she was 6.5 or 7. So the whole process was, there was no timeline. So we will get a call, but we don't know when we will get a call. In a month, week, or few months. And once we get that call, there is a long wait. Like the appointment is not next week or next month, it's down 3-4 months, and that's just the initial appointment. And then you go to that initial appointment, you're waiting and you're struggling at home and with school, because school was saying that we cannot take her in the class for full time because of the resources and the care she needs, and we cannot provide that service or care or support until there is a diagnosis. So the biggest issue for us was wait times, long wait times, and follow-ups. So eventually when we were diagnosed, we had to initiate all the follow-up calls. There was no process of, okay, here is the diagnosis, but what happens next? That again, you will get a call from some agency somewhere and you have to wait until then.
And how did you manage all those emotions and feelings during that waiting time?
At that time, no, we did not had any support. I'm from Brampton, and we didn't know who to reach out to. But on the other hand, we were reluctant to reach out. We didn't want it to share it publicly, saying there is something, we have our daughter have something different. We don't know what it is, but there's some issue. Because secretly we were hoping there is nothing, that she will just grow out of these tantrums, she will grow out of these behaviors. So let's just keep it kind of under the carpet, hidden, and maybe the doctor will say there is nothing and she will be fine. So that was the secret hope, but being some knowledgeable and research online and listening videos online of different people and we were not trying to do a self-diagnosis, but we're trying to figure out what's going on. We knew that we had to prepare for something is coming.
So you were doing a lot of your own research?
Yes.
And was it just Googling?
Googling,
Okay.
right? And trying to find sites which we thought were authentic, but we didn't know, right? But myself and my wife, we were enough educated not to just take what's there, but try to assess what's out there. But I can tell you there will be parents who will take whatever is on the Google and self-diagnose things. There was no instructions for preparation. It was just another appointment at that specialist who said we are gonna see her for few times before they can assess. When that last appointment where my daughter got diagnosis, we went to the hospital. They took us to this room. There were about, I think, 4 individuals, I believe all the medical practitioners. I don't remember who they were exactly, what their roles were, but all we knew is that our lead doctor, and he, in consultation with other individuals there, gave my daughter the diagnosis of high functioning autism at that time and ADHD. Later on, she got the diagnosis of Tourette syndrome also, but that was down the road, and there was no preparation. We were there. And the staff was gentle with us. But in the whole room, I did not see any South Asian face that I could relate to, or I could speak in my own language, and maybe they can understand my cultural or concerns or barriers. So they gave us the diagnosis, and I remember my heart sank at that moment. I felt like I just went into the chair, I just sank into the chair. And once everything was done, they told us if we have any questions. We didn't know what to ask. Like we had we were just numb, as you can say. And then I remember I didn't want it to get up from the chair because I felt that if I get up from here and leave, the autism's gonna go with me. So maybe if I sit here and ask more questions, maybe they will say it's not autism. Like I wanted that not to happen. So that was the real feeling. But the thought that ran through my mind and my wife's mind, we were both there, is how are we going to raise a child with a disability now? We were thinking of the financial part. We were thinking about how I'm going to tell my family that my daughter have a disability. In South Asian community, that's a big taboo, that's a big stigma around it. How I'm going to tell my community, how I'm going to go into public, into my gurdwara, or into how I'm going to deal with the school now. Will she be on medication? What kind of side effects? They were all running in my mind, but I couldn't ask anything that moment. I just needed a shock. I just needed a time off to go away and then come back. No, that was not offered to us, and we were given the diagnosis. We didn't had any questions, and then they said, well, we will see you in 6 months. And then we booked the appointment after 6 months, and then we had the diagnosis in our hand, and that's what we were supposed to deliver to the school. So the school is satisfied, and that was it. Well, we were told that we will get a phone call from the intake system, and we waited for that, and the intake happened over the phone. Then we were given a list of agencies, I guess, where we can go search for therapies, or go take my daughter to different classes, interaction with other children who may have different disabilities, or mostly autistic childs there. But eventually we connected with one of the agencies who walked us through the process of filling out the paper and where to apply for any funding if anything is needed, and what kind of therapies are available. But the trouble is, everywhere we went there is long wait time, like it took us years. So eventually we gave up on waiting, and we hired our own therapists, and then we got some therapy through the wait times, and we went eventually through the process. But even that time I never fully understood the process. Even today I don't fully understand the process, because we still don't know if we need help, which agency or what one contact that we need to go to. And it seemed that even the appointments, the follow-up appointments, we had to initiate them, right? We had to call in and say, you know what, it's been a year, 2 years, but we want to follow up and to see how our daughter is doing. So we had to, as a parent, had to initiate it. There was no real follow-up by anyone. Once you're given the diagnosis, you're at your own. And I meet a lot of parents in the South Asian community, and I can tell you, only recently I have met many parents. One of them got diagnosed when their son was 1 year old, and now their son is 7 years old. They haven't done anything. They got a diagnosis, that was it. There is no follow-up. They don't fully understand what to do. I was doing a talk, and they contacted me, and then that's where I said, well, you just lost 6 years of very precious time that your son needed certain therapies. Please go back to your doctor, initiate the process, and get all the help you can right away. So I asked them any feedback from school or doctor. They said no. I met another parent last week, and they called me and they said, well, we have concerns, but we don't have any diagnosis. They showed me the letter which doctor gave them, and the letter clearly states that your daughter have high functioning autism, ASD and ADHD. But they weren't able to read or translate that they actually got the diagnosis. And Even the diagnosis letter, the actual document is complicated. They were all acronyms which even I couldn't understand what they are. We had to sit there and Google everything what that is. So if that is the biggest thing, that when, especially with South Asian communities, it could be a cultural barrier, looking at the doctor as an authority figure and not asking questions. So I specifically asked them, did you ask any questions? They said no. I said, but why? You should have asked them what this letter means. Go step by step what exactly it means and what does this do. I had to read that letter and tell them that doctor has given you a diagnosis. If you're not sure, call your doctor, book an appointment, ask them all the questions again, what exactly this is. And that is a big issue, that parents are just being handed a letter, but then they're not sure what to do. We thought we can turn to the school will guide us. We imagined, because school was the one who was telling us that we either need to put your daughter on some kind of a medication or she cannot come to the school. So I thought, okay, we have a diagnosis, now she can go to the school. But school, we learned that school is just doing the school part. So we eventually connected with an agency in Brampton, Caledon area, and they assigned us a case manager who then came to our house and filled some forms, and so she can be in the system. But that was about it. Like, we had to mostly work on our daughter's behaviors and all the autism concerns ourselves. Eventually, moving through the school system as she went up the classes, we were lucky that we had really good teachers who guided us. And that's how we started to self-teach ourselves what the process is, what we can do, where we can reach out, and our own research. Well, speaking from South Asian perspective, there need to be better understanding of the cultural barriers, the stigmas which are surrounding the disabilities, and by the practitioners, by the medical staff or the hospitals and doctors, a representation from there. And that is sometimes very hard, I understand, but there should be some kind of an effort to have a representation in that room when the diagnosis is being given, or even prior to that this is what is coming, and maybe in their language, or at least a person who understands that culture and where this person is coming. And then if there are any to connect parents with the local resources in their own community, which better understand their culture, their faith, their backgrounds, and how to converse through that and how to go through that. And the biggest is the wait time. There are too many wait times. We went through 5 doctors. It was like passing from one doctor to another, and nobody was willing to put a finger and say this is the diagnosis, right? And that wait time needs to cut down, and that going from doctors to doctor, that needs to be condensed. And follow-ups, right? Follow-ups should be initiated by the person who's giving the diagnosis, their office, and they need to be in regular intervals. Like, it can't be left saying we will see you, let's say, in 1 year. Well, they may need to see you, the child may change, their behaviors may change, we may need to come early. But the trouble is, if you call to get early, there are no appointments available. That is a bigger issue overall, I guess, in the whole medical field. My daughter is 14 now. She's started high school, and my biggest concern, my wife's biggest concern, is the transition to the adulthood. She will be 18 soon, and what kind of sport will she get when she's 18? Because I keep hearing from the parents who are parents to people who are over 18 now, that there is not much sport. And our biggest concern right now is, okay, we have struggled through this process, but how do we proactively able to put support system in place when she becomes 18 and she's an adult and she can live independently. That is our big concern, and that's what we are trying to figure out what we can do now, so instead of waiting until 18 and then not knowing what to do.